So let's look at some keywords, please. I want us to start looking at the term real communication. If you could just jot them down quickly, and then we'll discuss them after. Real communication. Interaction. Grammar competence.
Oh, I didn't get that, Doc.
Where did I lose you?
I have interaction. I don't have number 3.
And grammar competence.
Grammar competence.
Yes.
At this time.
From you,
Mini class start. Yes. All right. Take over.
Yes, I'm hearing you. So that there's interference.
What I'm going to have to ask you to do is mute your mic once you're not speaking, please, because the background noise is coming out quite heavily.
Oh, okay.
When you're not speaking, you can mute your mic. Yeah, should be that.
She stopped on 4 o'clock. Oh, sorry, you're late. We come in there and find out
Western Jamaican campus, we can actually hear you.
Okay, so I need to mute?
Yes, please.
How do I mute again? Am I muted?
Lyra, authentic material. Vernon, authentic material. That's the last one. Authentic material.
Just mute.
Yeah, you're clearly.
Yeah.
Even when you speak also?
Yeah.
Let me know some things.
Okay, so can we just run through those 4? I want us to just run through those 4, please. And we're going to start there. And what I'm going to do is move directly into the lesson plan. Remember in the lesson plan that we should have prepared, right? Or we'll certainly be looking at. And we're going to take about half an hour with that lesson plan. It would have been for last week's lesson, but we moved it over to this week's lesson. Okay, so we're going to prepare on that. And while you are finishing the work on that, I'm going to get my jump drive. Okay, so it would take about 20 minutes. All right, so let's start with those terms. Lyra, can I start with you? Can we look at real communication and what is that word saying for you? That's
real communication?
Yes.
Was I supposed to have?
These are terms that we looked at last week.
We looked at these terms last week?
Yes. I don't know how to feel about that. Yes, we looked at real communication. We started with real communication.
Okay, real communication. I can't remember that from last week.
Yes.
Probably it has to deal with the message from the sender being received by the encoder.
Right. Okay. Anybody else here wants to add to that? Including Vernon, I'm not sure if you want to add as well. Anybody wants to add to that? Why would I specify real communication? We looked at communication last week, and we said that the important thing with language structure versus language as communication was the need to utilize real communication, that the tasks in the classroom were to reflect real communication. So in that context, what is real communication? How can we define that? So she's saying that it's clearly a real event, okay? Messenger, sender, receiver, and there's a message. How else might we attach particular understandings, definitions to that?
Well, I suppose.
Sorry, Vernon. Okay, hold on. Dharma is speaking, Vernon, and then you can go ahead.
The message.
Right.
Which is the encoder.
So My turn or her?
It depends on the text. Sorry. The language which is used, so that you really understand what is really communicated. Understand the type of language or the context. Okay? All right. Vernon, you were saying something, and then I'll come back to Dharma. Vernon?
Yes, sorry, you hear me?
Yes.
Right, I missed the first part of that lesson, but I was just extending St. Lucia's definition.
Yes.
I don't quite get your name. All right. So I was saying that within that communication has to happen within a particular context. And the message has to be understood, or whatever it is being communicated, has to be understood both by the person who is speaking, but also by the audience. In other words, real communication has to actively involve the participants.
Right.
And has to be curtained by the context within it.
Okay. All right.
Which it takes place.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up the word context, because the aspect of real communication is that whatever I give the students in the class ought to reflect that which they would have to use, that for which they would have to use the language in real life. Remember we looked at the salt, the question with the salt, is it all coming back? Right, the question with the salt, and I gave you that yes/no scenario, yes? So the idea is we can have the structure of language, but then what's the point of the structure if they don't know how to use the language? Okay, so the value of the structure is grounded in the context. Why are we using this, and what are we using it to do? Okay, which is why the CLT classroom is task oriented. Yes, because it asks us basically at the end of the day what you have given when you have given the student particular activities. How are those activities task-based, task-oriented, something that they have to do to use the language? Okay, all right, let's look at authentic. What does authentic mean? Authentic was a feature of the CLT, right? The CLT classroom. Let's go back to CLT. What does CLT mean again?
Communicative language teaching
approach. Okay, excellent. So we understand that, and we went through some features which really, if you look at what I'm calling out things to do with the characteristics of the CLT classroom. Okay, so if I look at authentic material, what might that be based on what we would have discussed? Relevant to the community, relevant to the age group. If it's female only practice, relevant to gender. Right. Very good. Okay, everybody on the same page with that? So the authentic material is the real material. That's the material that is in a particular context in real life that I'm giving the students to use based again on their background, their levels of interest, etc. Okay. Another word was interaction. Sashana, I haven't heard from you. Okay, and also not if you do not happen to have two people, there is always an audience. That's important. So with interaction, it's not that every task I give the student, it has to be a task where they're actually talking to somebody or talking with somebody. They could also write a journal entry. Okay, they could know that when they're writing their essays, I, as the teacher now, I am reading the essay, and so I am the audience. The point is there is no event, right? No communicative event. Remember when we looked at sender and receiver, we looked at the different modes, the different ways in which that can be caused to function. So we have the writing, we have the speaking, okay? So when you have a situation that I am receiving a particular message, I become the audience, and the person sending the message automatically now remains the sender of that message. Is that clear? Whatever mode it is that the message is placed in, and whatever description you want to give the recipient of the message. Everything clear? All right. What was the other one now? The fourth one? So we've done interactive, authentic. Okay, so grammar competence. Now, we didn't use the term grammar competence, but we looked very, very heavily at language structure versus language as communication, okay? And what we were saying is we were looking at the idea that some students can complete all of these multiple choice examples, can complete the fill in the blanks, can do all of this, and yet when they come to write, they are not able to demonstrate that grammar competence that they're able to demonstrate in the other modes of testing, okay? And the bottom line with that was what we were saying is that the CLT operates as an umbrella, all right? So grammar is within that umbrella, but there is so much more that you don't end up focusing merely on language as structure, but you incorporate it in such a way that they're using it so they get to know about their culture, they get to know the cultural uses of the language, and this is the target language that we're talking about, okay? And the target language would be what? Vernon? Yes, good. The reason we're treating it that way is because we are saying that over 75% of our language students in the Caribbean, certainly in Jamaica, do not have standard English as their mother tongue. Do not own it as their mother tongue. They have to acquire it. Okay? Leroy, you want to tell us if that's the case in St. Lucia?
Yes, it is.
Similar situation.
Yeah, they speak Creole.
Okay. All right.
Especially the part where I'm from.
Say that again. I missed that last part. Especially in?
The area that I'm from, the south of the island.
Okay. And is that a historical, it's just a historical reality? What's?
Yes, because of the French. We speak a broken French. It's called Creole, French Creole.
Okay. All right. All right. Carrie, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Can we be allowed to see you? We're only seeing chairs.
I'm sorry.
If you could just sit so we could see you, that would be great. There you go. All right. So she's waving everybody. If I could just get all right. Okay. All right. We'll get there. All right. That's everybody that's here today. Okay. So let's go now. So is the CLT concept understood? Does everybody understand the CLT approach concept?
Yes.
Yes? And the bottom line is purposefulness, and the language must be couched in context. You can't forget that. If you forget anything, don't forget those two main features, okay? Contextual and purposeful, right? And so an interactive frame automatically is embedded within the use of the CLT approach. Okay, so we understand CLT. We understand language structure versus language use does not mean language structure never comes up, okay? Simply mean that we're focused on language use and we cause the language structure to be embedded within the language use, all right? That's excellent. So what we're going to look at, we're gonna start looking today now. I wanted us to get into a lesson. Kerry, you would have received that document from me, I believe over the weekend, if not before. Lyra, I know Ashley had sent some stuff to you last week, but I think I also, right, Lyra, you're on the ball. Okay, Lyra is there prepared. Vernon, do you have the lesson plan?
No, unfortunately not.
You don't have access to email right now? If you had access to email, it would be great. Because I want us to utilize that plan. I want us to get into that for another 20-25 minutes. So if you could try to gain some access. Ladies, here you have it. You're trying to find it, Norma? No, we're just gonna. I'm getting Wi-Fi, so you're getting it. Okay, so it's just to pull it up. All right, Sashana, you have it. Okay, so we want to look at two basic things here with this lesson plan, and we're kind of using it as a practical example of what we have been discussing for the last two classes, certainly, okay? We're going to look at two main things. We're going to look at the traditional aspects of this lesson plan, and then we want to move from having defined it.
Yes, I have.
Brilliant, that's great, okay. So having found it, and you're going to look now at the traditional aspects, and we're going to discuss that. I want us to look at it in pairs first. I had wanted to use the Google Talk. Kerry, I'm not sure if you got that email, read the Google Talk. I figure it may not work in a wonderful way today. No, you have to press your mute off. Whenever you're gonna speak, just take the mute off.
Right, no, I didn't get the Google Talk.
Oh, all right. So do you have access to it though? Do you have it as an app on your phone? I'm not trying to be bright and bumptious. I suggest that everybody is to have a certain type of phone. I'm just asking.
I'm sorry, I don't have that certain type of phone.
Okay, not a problem. All right, it's just that Google Talk enables you to meet up with somebody somewhere else and video conference with them on the phone. And it's not as deep as it sounds, believe me. It's just it's like a WhatsApp tool. Yes, it's very, very simple. Yeah, it does. But okay, so it means that Vernon, Lyra, were you able to deal with the Google Talk? No?
I haven't tried.
Okay, all right, so we can't do it for today. All right, but now you understand the aim for situations like this. It works out perfectly because then I could pair you up with Sashana, even though you're in St. and then she can work with you using the Google Talk. Okay, all right, so unfortunately, three of you are going to have to do it on your own. I prefer the paired work, you know, so that you can kind of interact and engage. But let's look at the lesson plan, please, for a moment. And what you're going to do, what I'd like you to do is, based on what we've been discussing, particularly last week and a little bit before, I want you to look at the elements of the lesson plan that might be considered traditional, right? I want us to throw out some of those first to make sure that we're on the right track. And then I'll move us over to the functional approach, looking at how this plan could be altered in ways to represent that functional approach. And then I'm going to allow you to do the pair work, which will get into the specifics. We'll come back and discuss it. For the three of you, Vernon, Lyra, and Kerry, you'll do the work individually. Is that your son, Kerry? I see somebody there putting up feet very nicely over there. Yes. Okay. So we'll, and then
Yes, I have both of them here.
Yes, never mind. The life of the mother. We understand. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Are the objectives clear for this particular task? We're going to discuss first, do it on our own, and then come back and finish up the discussion focused on the lesson plan. Okay? All right, so let's look at the lesson plan that's before you. I'm going to allow you to just speak based on what comes up, so don't feel confined to go through the sequencing of the plan itself. Whatever jumps out at you that you would see as traditional. Just indicate, let me know, and then we'll move to you and we can take it from there. All right, Ashley, you look like you're going on the floor. So fill in the blank exercises. Okay.
That's an objective.
Yeah.
That seems to be traditional.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Sentences, I guess you could, if you're there contextual, if you're purposeful, then I guess you could just.
Is there any way for us to know, Ashley, based on looking at this person's plan? Is there any way for us to, is there any way the person could have written the plan to cause us to know? Yes, right. Okay. All right. So those two are valid points. Anybody else? Say that again.
Whiteboard worksheets. So your infrastructure is very.
Sorry, I'm trying to capture you. Right.
So I'm saying whiteboard worksheets. So your infrastructure is not very student focused.
Good job.
But more teacher focused. I'm
Excellent.
giving you.
Excellent. Love it. Okay, you guys are on the ball. Lovely. Okay. Vernon, Lyra, yes, Lyra.
In the methodology,
Yes.
I noticed that it's mainly teacher students, and it's not really focused on communication or interaction between the students, like in the CLT approach that's supposed to allow interaction amongst the students.
Right. Yes. Excellent. Lovely. So there are about 3 points in that lovely point that you just made there. Teacher-student interaction is an issue, right? It seems to be teacher leads, student follows. Teacher leads, student follows. There's really a little scope for the student to do a little bit of exploration and use of the good. And then, of course, you're commenting on a communicative aspect of it. You're not seeing a lot of interaction, you're saying, with their peers. So it's almost as though it is moving in that very linear sense from teacher to student and back again, without taking in consideration for all the various uses of language that could occur through collaboration. Okay, collaborative learning. Excellent. Yes.
Right. I'm presenting our objective.
Yes.
In terms of to complete, or somebody said that, but it seems as if she's teaching so many nouns, verbs,
very good. Yes.
Adverbs.
Yes. In one lesson.
Right.
Yes. And then there's a lovely word there, review, which we tend to get. I don't know how many of you see it, but we tend to get it certainly at when we supervise. That if you drop it on somebody, the quick statement is, oh no man, we're just reviewing today. This is all, yes, we're reviewing, and everything comes into it, and you're saying, okay, all right, you know, but what is the student learning if you're reviewing? Yes. Exactly, right? Okay. So, anything else? Anybody else? Vernon, I haven't heard from you.
Probably I've been looking at it, and as a practicing teacher, this is what I tend to see in the classroom. It is focused on students learning. What do you put it now? But it's quite a few things in one lesson.
I don't think we caught that. Say that again.
No, I'm noticing that there's no duration to the lesson. Oh, it's 40 minutes.
40 minutes, yes.
It's quite a few stuff to learn in 40 minutes. Okay. And it doesn't say for whether it is grade 7 or grade 8 or grade 9.
Right.
But from my knowledge of this, unless this is an introductory lesson.
Yes. It says grade 7.
It's at grade 7.
Yes.
But even then, these topics are quite in-depth topics. So, for example, if you're looking at verbs, even at grade 7, it's quite a bit. So, if this is a lesson.
But wouldn't you say that the grade 7 students, they would have covered parts of speech in primary school, and then coming up, it would be almost a reinforcement?
No, it's assumed. It's assumed. It's something totally different. But outside of that, the methodology,
yeah,
it's a variation on the chart out. So that's what it is. It doesn't allow the students to participate unless directed by the teacher. It's be for the lesson to allow for interaction. Even the worksheet seems to be fairly limited. Application within the context of the lesson.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks for sharing. All right. So, anybody has anything pressing? Sashana?
One more.
Okay. Who's that? Carrie? Yes?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if we discussed it yet.
Yes.
But down the bottom where it says evaluation.
Where it says?
Evaluation.
Yes.
It says students will be asked to review notes on parts of speech for next class. It's almost as if in hindsight she's saying the teacher is noticing that they possibly need to be taught parts of speech.
Oh, I get you. Okay. Okay. All right. I thought you were looking at something else. Okay. So what you're saying is that there's a kind of subconscious or unconscious awareness on the part of the teacher. Is that what you're saying? That these things, despite the fact that she's just finished a lesson, they actually haven't been taught?
Not realizing she needs to teach it.
Right.
Okay. Brother, I agree with that.
No, I agree, because I noticed that the topic of this session is part of speech review.
Yes.
But the students, they asked to review for next class. In other words, is that the students are not going to learn what she's going to have there today. Because if you're going to review, if you're going to teach lesson part of speech review, it's not that the students have been asked to review specific parts of speech. They are the students will be asked to review some parts of speech for the class. And if you look at the right, so that's it. So maybe she's going to run in a lesson.
All right, what's happening to us here is that we're hearing you, but you're breaking up at points. I don't know if you can do anything about that, but you're breaking up at points, and so sometimes it's difficult to actually catch the fullness of what you're saying.
Oh.
Yeah? What
Okay.
probably
All right.
try as an alternative is when you're speaking, though I hate to disrupt the flow, that you to speak a little more slowly and ensure that we get the first point before you move on. If not, we're kind of getting lost, not because of you, but because of the whatever the feedback, yeah?
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I was thinking,
Yes.
based on the fact that they should have learned these things in primary school,
Yes.
can we say that the teacher is unreasonable to give all of this in a 40-minute session just because it looks like a recap?
Yes.
That's what I was saying.
And she's probably expecting them to know it, so she gave an outline. This, give a recap, and then she tell them, go. So she has to go and review it.
No. Exactly. So in essence, she's not teaching them. No, she's expecting that they're coming with this, and she's trying to hurry up and give a little review.
Yes, a recap.
Right. Right. Okay. So everybody's in agreement with that, I believe, and I think you've highlighted. There's some that you've missed out, but I'll leave that until we get into the specifics. When you get into your peers or when you're working on your own now. All right. Let's move a little from the traditional and let's look at the functional approach. All right, and I just want snippets now because I don't want anybody to say everything and then there's nothing left for you all to do. Okay, so you've listed very clearly, and if most of you I think have gone in the kind of structure that starts by looking at various aspects of the lesson rather than just pulling at content. So that's great. So we would have looked at the first part with the you looked at the objectives, and some of you moved into the steps, and then Harry, you looked at the assignment, the evaluation. Okay, now let's try and keep that flow for a functional approach. How might this person, let's say she needs to teach something on parts of speech. She's clearly been given some mandate, and usually actually at the beginning of a grade 7, the school syllabus or curriculum will ask you to review particular things that they were expected to, have done in GSTAT and etc. So what might we place at the start? Let's look at the specific objectives. What could we do with the specific objectives to cause everyone to see a kind of functional view of things? What might we do with those objectives? Read the first objective for me. Carrie, let me allow Carrie to read it. Carrie, read the first objective. You have it in front of you there. Read the first objective.
It says, show knowledge of the various parts of speech.
Show knowledge of the various parts of speech. So, Sonia's...
It's not very specific.
Not very specific at all. So, in that way, I may not know if they have that knowledge or not, based on that objective. Right. Go ahead.
Well, just based on that objective, I think she could throw out the class.
Yeah.
What do you guys know about parts of speech? List one, make it interactive.
Okay, so let's zoom in on those words. So if we're trying to change the specific objectives, listen to the two things, the two words, list, ask. Do you see a difference?
Right.
When I'm putting, and in fact, we're more readily speaking of learning outcomes now. It's more popular to speak of learning outcomes than specific objectives, but not everybody's there yet. So the bottom line is with specific objectives, they must be measurable. Yeah, you must be able to look in the class and see if it's happening and determine if it's happening or not. So when you're looking at list, students will be able to list blah 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 blah. Students will get the opportunity to ask blah blah blah, or will be asked if. Do you see the difference? Rather than just show knowledge of, because show knowledge of is extremely general, whereas if I start looking at what they're doing, what are the students doing, and my objectives are looking at what they're doing, then I'll be able to look at what they're doing and know if they've done it or not. Yes? So when I come out of that lesson, I'll know, yes, I covered this because they listed it, they spoke about, they worked in groups to show me X, they drew, they illustrated, whatever it is, apart from, you know, not just show knowledge of. Everybody good on that? Yeah? All right, so I don't want to get into too many specifics. Let's do one more. Sonia, I think, had brought up the issue of resources, and I thought that was excellent because immediately what will stand out for me about this plan is when I look at the resources, I think, really? Okay, now we have to try to bear in mind, we know the schools that we sometimes have to deal with, and we know that there is a lack in resources. But because there's a lack in resources, doesn't mean that I have to always restrict what I'm able to use, okay? Or you can be resourceful, yes. Okay, Leroy, you with me? You good? Yes?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So everybody's on the same page, so you understand it. So what could we do with resources? If we're thinking of this, this lesson and trying to make it give it a functional approach, look, okay? And as I said, I don't want to get too specific, but what items might I place under that under resources? Just some examples. Vernon?
I'm just thinking of multimedia, for example. You could have gotten a video that shows, instead of just worksheets, and
right.
You could have gotten a video that details what the grade passes teach. I could, for example, do cartoon form that would be the grade 7 students. And it would occupy the attention of different and capture those who learn by
very good, and that would be a great stimulant. So he's looking at, I guess something like YouTube, Vernon, using a video. Right. Speaking of using a cartoon type video, yes, and looking at past speech that way. Yes. Anything else? Anybody? One or two more? Using what? Yes. Okay. So using music, using poetry. Yes. Different ways. Games, right? All right. So you understand there's so many things, especially when you're dealing with parts of speech, because you have that flexibility, because you can end up pretty much choosing any subject area you want to choose, right? Yes, yes, good. Okay, good. That's interesting. Yes, and they could identify the different parts of speech. That's great. Okay, so everybody understands. So when you have things like that, multimedia projector, use of cartoon with a YouTube video, use of card games, and of course you get more specific and list the type of game, etc. We look at the lesson plan and we begin to feel the functional approach coming out, as opposed to a very rigid structural approach. Clear? Clear. All right. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, and you shouldn't, based on what we just did, you should take about 15 minutes max. I want you to look at the following for me, please. I'm going to give you a list of what to look for in the lesson plan. And I want you to look at, I'm going to try not to give you the answer clearly. So I'm going to ask you to look at a particular item. So just number it for me. And then when we come back together, we're going to look at that item. Okay? So I want you to look, number 1, topic. Now, I'm leaving it open like that. So you are now to comment on anything to do with the topic that you see is traditional, and this is what you could do to make it functional. Are you with me? Great. Number 2, look again at the specific objectives. This time, we didn't look at number 1, did we? We looked at 2 and 3, didn't we? Did we look at number 1? Right. So let's everybody focus on number 1. Okay? See how we could transform that specific objective, which is very traditional sounding, to something more functional. The third thing I want you to do, we've finished with resources, so I'm going to leave resources. The third thing, I want you to look at step 1, step 2, steps 3, 4, and 5, but I want you to look at them separately. Clear? So don't just give a sweeping generalization. I want you to treat them separately and look at the specific things she's doing in each step and how you would transform the specific things into other specific things, but those things that are functional. Is that clear?
Dr. Spencer? Dr. Spencer, with what's the second one? Which objective do you want us to look at?
Number one, the first objective, because we've touched on the second and third already. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. Carrie, everything clear? Yes? Okay. Vernon, everything clear?
Yes, I got that.
Okay, so I'm going to mute my mic. All right. And then everybody's going to be working here. You're working there. So when we come back, we're going to go in that order. Okay. And then I'll choose the pairs and the individuals who will respond to the particular item. Okay. All right. Great. If you're really desperately needing to have some kind of feedback from us, then go like this. Okay. And somebody in the class will pick up. All right. Okay.
Yeah. What? What? 1 minute, 1 minute.
True. Mommy, what come after R? What come after R? What come after R? So, pronounce the word. True. If. I. True. If. True. Mommy?
Hi, Carrie, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, great. Are you ready to go? Because Dr. Spencer wants to know. You're ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. We're coming back to you. We're coming back to you. Mute her now? Mute her. All right. Hi, Vernon. Are you ready for us?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, coming to you. Coming back to you. Hi. Hi, Kira. Are you ready for Lira? Are you ready for us? Hi. Hi, you ready? Oh, no.
Ready for what?
Are you? Have you done your lesson plan? You answered the questions? You ready to talk to Dr. Spencer?
I tried, I'm not finished, huh?
Okay, we'll give you a few more minutes. All right, good. She's finishing her work, I guess. Oh, no. Don't be well done.
We are just doing the same thing.
Right. Hi. Hi. Don't, Dr. Spencer's on her way back to class. We're just checking to see you're okay. You're okay? Okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna mute.
It should be. What happened is there's too much background noise when they keep it on totally. So whenever there's the speed, there's the unmute. Other than that, they'll keep it on. Okay, so everybody's hearing me now?
Yes,
Yes,
no.
All right, lovely. I'm sorry, I'm actually about 1 minute from the gate. Anyway, all right, so let's go with the first item, which was the topic. And let me just hear, can I start with Kerry and then go to Lyra, Vernon, and then come to the group?
Okay.
What if any comments were made about the topic?
Carrie.
So Kerry?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so the issue I had with the topic is that it seems ambiguous, a little bit vague. Because, and then the other issue I had is that it's not realistic in terms of what can be accomplished in one session.
Right, okay. Okay. All right. I'll come back to that. Lyra, let's hear what Lyra has to say.
Okay, with regards to the topic, I found that it was presumptuous and assuming based on the students' parts of speech review, basically saying that the students are supposed to already know parts of speech.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So two different sides of the coin, but essentially the argument is the same. All right. Vernon.
We're working on the same assumption. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now. Yes.
Right. So working on the same assumption, what I did, because the impression that I got was that we were to rewrite the lesson plan. I focused on nouns. So that was my topic. Because it's a 40-minute period, so it would have been impossible to really review effectively all of them within that time.
All right, Ashley, could you place the phone a little closer to the unit? Do you see it?
Yes, it's very close.
Okay. Is everybody else hearing Vernon, or am I the only one not hearing?
I'm hearing it. Everybody has some feedback. But what I was saying is that based on the same assumption, without stating it, I narrowed the topic to nouns. Because you could conceivably have a look at it within a 40-minute session instead of really trying to look at all of the parts of speech in that time. So my topic is nouns.
I didn't hear that last part.
Nouns. His topic is nouns.
Right. So what Vernon is saying essentially is that it's so wide, and he feels that it needs to be narrowed down. Is that the core of what Vernon is saying? Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So again, it's a third position, though. Okay, that's great. All right. Can I hear from a member of each pair? And I'm walking towards the classroom. I'm parking now. Can I hear one member from each pair? So either Sonia or Ashley or Shoshana and or Dharma.
Dharma? All right. Yes, Dharma. All right. Or topic. Yeah, topic.
For the topic, right.
How do we use parts of speech in everyday language? Yes, so we learn it down.
Okay. All right. So this is your alternative. Is that what you're saying? Your alternative topic?
Yes.
All right. So the issue you have with the topic then is that you don't really giving a context. Is that correct?
Right. It's not functional for me.
Right. Okay. All right. So Sonia or Ashley.
Okay, I don't have a problem with the range because in the context, I don't think it's inappropriate for the grade level. But to make it a little CLT, we thought about parts of speech in action.
Okay. All right. Has anybody thought of the idea of having both a topic and a thematic focus? Has anybody in your discussions a while ago, did it come up at all?
Yes.
That perhaps we can keep the topic, but also have a thematic focus.
Well, in terms of, we kept the topic, but in terms of the different steps, we adopted the thematic focus.
All right. Okay, so Dharma, that what you just gave me, was that thematic or was that topical? What
Thematic.
Thematic. All right. Okay. So I'm about to enter the door.
I'm not hungry.
Just take this off. Right. Okay, so let's just get back on track with what you were just saying. Now, I like what everybody has said, because you all are looking at different aspects of what is wrong with the topic, which is pretty awesome, actually. So you're pulling out quite a bit out of the lesson. Now, what I'm suggesting is that one of the issues with this lesson is it has no thematic focus. It's only structurally focused. Yes? Agreed?
Yes.
Right. So if you have two ways to deal with it. Lyra, let me ask you, based on what you do there, if you have to hand in a lesson plan, don't know if you hand it into your HOD or whoever, when you hand in that lesson plan, do you have to have topic and theme, or do you just have topic?
Topic.
Okay. Anybody else? Vernon, Kerry, do you have two things or do you have one thing?
Just one thing, topic.
Okay, and does anybody speak to how that topic should look?
I'm sorry, repeat?
Does anybody speak to how that topic should look?
No, not really.
Okay, all right. Anybody else here?
Yes, we want to because the curriculum is so structured that you work with a theme.
Yes.
So, like, let me choose a language arts theme. We're talking about ourselves.
Yes.
We're talking about ourselves, right? Language arts, ourselves. So, you talk about one aspect of yourself.
Right. And under that aspect, would you be looking at structures? Would you be looking at parts of speech? Might you be looking at punctuation?
Exactly.
Okay.
So you take home, we call it a wing, you take home
Right.
something and
a grammatical element.
Right,
Okay.
you fit in comprehension, you fit in. So at the end of that one lesson,
Yeah.
you're supposed to have a very good variety of structure.
Okay. All right. Okay. So no, but does anybody else have that experience? That Norma just shared. No, that's well, yes, no, and that's the aim. That's the aim. That's why I'm asking if anybody else had the experience. Kerry, are you primary or secondary?
Secondary.
Okay, born on your secondary as well, correct? No, I can't. He does it. He does it himself. Brother, are you there? All right, hush. I'm trying to also get this screen back so that I can show the PowerPoint while I'm speaking. All right. So the bottom line is, everybody, that it's the topic itself is usually content-based, right? So it's a content-based topic. So parts of speech as a topic could work. Listen carefully, it could work if an EO comes in and sees parts of speech. Right. You have to teach based on what is on the syllabus and you know what is in the curriculum. So as a topic, if you are not going to have anything else, no, that's when we need to speak. But as a topic, that indicates the area, the structural area of concentration. Are you with me? So it could be parts of speech, it could be nouns, as Vernon proposed, it could be adjectives, it could be types of sentences, etc. Everybody with me on that? The thematic focus, however, some persons may put thematic focus, some persons may put theme. Now, the primary curriculum and the Rose curriculum. Lyra, I'm not sure if you have Rose curriculum, if you utilize or you know of Rose curriculum there, if you guys you know of it. It's put it this way, it's a pretty face here because it's not always used, but it's supposed to cover of grade 7 to grade 9. Carrie, you know about it, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So the primary curriculum and certainly grade 7 to 9 should be focused in that way. So you have the topical element, which is the technical, the structural aspect of what you're going to teach. But then you have a thematic focus, like our environment, like family and friends, like relationships. And I tend to like it to even move further than that and to just be anything that you decide that you're going to look at for that particular lesson. But you've placed it as an idea, right? Which is really what the theme is in this context, in this sense. All right, everybody understanding that? So perhaps that would start our lesson off contextually, because I would know exactly what I'm looking at, what my focus is for the lesson. Okay? All right, let's move from the topic. Let's look at that number one specific objective. Sonia and Ashley, I'm going to come to you first. Yes, Vernon, you're back.
They looking at it thematically. I've in our schools where I think in the late 90s, the curriculum was being emphasized or re-emphasized. That's when I met it. But isn't the danger when you're working from a thematic perspective that the students believe that somehow the grammar is a lesser God, so to speak, and should not be paid attention to? That's one. And two, when you're testing them,
yeah,
how do you test them? Do you test them both on the theme and the grammar? In other words, where should the focus be? What should we, if I'm teaching, for example, I'm doing English language.
Right.
The theme is my community, and I want to look at nouns.
Yeah.
Really, what I want them to learn are nouns. I don't want them necessarily to learn my community. They might believe that what I want them to learn is my community, and that nouns are just a byproduct of the discussion that we're having at the learning process.
All right. So, I'm going to ask you to mute your mic again while I respond, just because we're getting feedback. But here is here's the thing, Vernon, and the truth is we're going to get into this in about 5 or so minutes.
Right.
The reality is that we don't necessarily support the idea that grammar is the only thing that should be taught. So the idea is that I'm learning to use the language, but at the same time that I'm learning to use the language for a particular purpose, I'm also acquiring the grammatical structure needed to use that language. Are you with me? So if you think about, think about your students, the interest level doesn't come when you put nouns on the board. The interest level comes when you give them a focus point which stimulates them, whatever it might be, sports, whatever it might be. And so you use that stimulant to teach them the structure. But the structure is couched in language use. It is more meaningful for them because they understand why they're using it, when they're using it, and how they're expected to use it based on a context. Okay? So what research is showing is that and I think most of us recognize it, when you give them all of these different worksheets, and worksheets can be used, don't get me wrong, but you give them these different structural focus points only. What ends up happening is you end up repeating the same, you're going over the same thing and you're wondering, I was teaching this from grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, what is it? Why do you still not understand it? Why aren't you getting it? And so it's not that they're not learning the grammar. They're going to learn the grammar, but they're learning it in a context. And I'm going to come back to it, Verna, because in a real life situation. Is that what you said? Okay. So Sonia is saying in an unreal sense, the language doesn't end up being real to them because of how they use it. But Vernon, I want you to in another 10 or 15 minutes, I want to come back to you again based on where I want to go with the lesson and what I would like to do. And you let me know if you understand any better what my point is on that matter as we get practical about it. Okay?
Right.
All right. Okay. Craig has Craig is not in the room. What I'm trying to do now is I am trying to get back my regular screen so that I can put on the PowerPoint. Yes, please, Ashley. I'm not. Oh, wait. No. Yes, please get him. All right. Oh, I might have found it actually. All right. So bear with me, Lyra. I'm coming to you in a minute. Let me just get this PowerPoint up and going so that you all can. Here we go. You guys wouldn't understand how great it feels to see the title of that PowerPoint right now. It's been an amazing task to get to it. All right, I think I got it. All right, so just go down to share. Oh, it's sharing already then. Lyra and Vernon and Kerry, can you see the screen?
Yes.
PowerPoint?
Yes.
What did I just do?
Actually, yes. Okay, yes.
All right. Okay. Breathing. All right. Okay. So let's go through. Why is it only showing half? That's me. Huh? All right. Mr. Dixon is helping me to figure out what's going on. Let me see the other slides. You're only seeing half, right, Lyra?
Yes, only half.
Mm-hmm. You said you speak French, Sonia, did you? Okay. So you all realize that you can. Okay, I remember. Huh? No, I was just, well, yeah, that too. But I was just thinking that the orientation here is a second language orientation, so you can utilize. I said it before. It's the orientation of the course. It looks at second language learning as a base. So I'm saying some of the principles. Yes, those I've had online. Right. Okay. I think so. What I have to do? Click on it. All right. Okay. So sorry about all of that mix up. Let's get back on target. Let's look at that first objective. I wanted to get Ashley and they can't see the camera now. Ashley and Sonia's view on that first objective.
Oh, the first?
Yes. What would it look like in your estimation as
how students identify the various parts of speech?
Have students identify the various parts of speech? Okay.
So right. Within the theme, because we said that it's parts of speech in action.
So parts of speech in action is the theme that you want to use, yeah?
So our first objective, the first objective is to have students identify. So first,
have students identify. So if we're gonna put it by the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify the various parts of speech. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm coming back to that. Anything from okay, so we're gonna put that as a second one. Everybody's hearing Sonia?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm gonna ask you to comment on it in a minute, because what we don't want is we don't want overlap of objectives. So they're to be placed in as two separate, yes, because you're doing two separate things. Okay. Carrie, Lyra, or Vernon, any of you want to comment on that objective as moving from what the traditional lesson plan had to a more functional approach? Students will be able to identify the various parts of speech.
I don't know.
You don't know?
That are more participatory or active.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So that's my suggestion too.
Student state, have student list, have them write down, have them.
Right. So he's right in a sense. Yes. In fact, he is right. What he's saying is, and correct me if I've in any way misquoted you, Vernon. What Vernon is saying is that you're to have active verbs, more active verbs, so that we can directly measure. Yes, right. That's right. That's what you're saying, right, Vernon?
Yes.
Right. And so, and I'm saying that works. So it's not, I wouldn't look at it as, oh, that objective is wrong. I'm looking at it as how could we better refine that objective to demonstrate the function. So you had said identify the various parts of speech. So what he's saying is you could say they would have to write, you were saying, or list, or you know, right, whatever the actual verb is, whatever they're doing, what would they have to do?
Oh,
what in your mind were you thinking they'd have to do?
we were thinking that the person would have them, what do you know about parts of speech?
So students will answer questions about various parts of speech. Students will circle parts of speech on given worksheets.
All that would be
so that they become, that's why they're specific now, okay? And as I said, the intern, because the methodology explains what you're doing, tells what you're doing. The objective says, this is my aim, this is what I want the students to be able to do, yeah? So in fact, actually, let me just use the point to say that they really should have a connect. If I'm looking at a lesson plan and your methodology is not highlighting what you said in your objectives, then I'm going to have an issue. So there should be that interrelationship between the objectives and the methodology, okay? All right, let me just take, I'm just gonna take one more objective. Leroy, you were saying something?
Basically the same thing with women.
Okay, okay, good.
Yeah.
Session or Dharma, and then I'll come back to it. All right, so Shauna is going to provide one.
on
The specific objective. Yes, what did you give for that first one?
for the first one, you divided.
Okay, good.
So it's, students should be able to define parts of speech.
Okay. All right, did everybody hear that? Define parts of speech. Is that okay for you all, right? And give examples of parts of speech, which I think Ashley and Sonia also said. Yes? Lira, Vernon?
Yes.
Okay.
So this definition will be quite interactive in terms of you take it, well, the step on when this.
Okay. Okay. She's getting excited. All right. Dharma is getting ahead of herself. Okay, so we have an understanding. Let's just go back through clearly. We have an understanding of that first issue of the topic, needing to have a thematic focus. We'll come back to that because Vernon had some issues with that, which I want to answer as well, or to finish answering. We looked at the specific objectives, okay, and we looked at the other two before. We touched on resources before, which is why I didn't look at it now, all right? And we're going now to step one. Am I correct? Step one is the next thing? Okay, Carrie, let me hear from you. Carrie, let me hear what you have with step one. What was the issue for you with step one? Read the traditional aspect, and what would you do differently?
Well, I had an issue with her just writing the topic on the board.
Yeah.
It's almost like a traditional chalk and talk teacher.
Good, yes.
She could use some theatrics, possibly just start out the lesson with a bang, with an introductory activity, something that would capture the attention of the student.
Okay. All right. So let's look at those 2 points. And what I'd like you to see is as you're going along, okay, which is why I'm focusing you in this way, because for the rest of the course, really, this is what you keep needing to have in your mind, this kind of structure. The issue with the lesson, what you're saying is there's no grab, really. There's nothing to stimulate. It is chalk and talk. So the problem is that the start of the lesson, the first step, does not pull the students into the lesson. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes.
Right. Okay, it does not pull. So it is focused on structure, it's not focused on use. It is definitely not task-oriented. Would you agree with that, everybody? Yes, it's not task-oriented. And really, as you're alluding to, Carrie, no purpose has been established for this. Why are we doing this? There's nothing there, okay? And what you're saying, Carrie, is you would provide an activity which was interactive in nature that would grab the attention of the students, correct?
Right.
All right, could you suggest one? Especially based on what we're doing?
The teacher could possibly start with a song.
Okay.
Or, well, what Ashley and her, their topic is parts of speech in action. So she could possibly get them in action, demonstrating the parts of speech before.
Very good.
So it's almost like an action song.
Yes.
She had.
That's lovely, and I like how you pulled into to that theme. That you pulled the theme into it, and that's so important because that's the crux of the matter with what we're doing right now. That everything that we end up doing in the lesson is not simply applicable structurally, but is applicable to how we began. That's how we learn. We remember things because of the context in which they have been couched. That's why if you think of yourself and what you remember the things that are more important to you, but you can certainly give a context within which the memory is placed. Okay? All right, excellent. So that theme could work, and I'm sure Ashley and Sonia can see that, right? And so you have them doing some kind of actions as related to recalling the definitions of the noun, adjective, etc., or identify. Good. All right, Vernon and Leroy, you're good to go with that?
Yep.
All right, Vernon?
All right. What is it that what am I supposed to do?
I was asking if you were okay with what Carrie said. You're not here. Are you not hearing her? Did you hear her a while ago?
I'm here.
No, tell me what the issue is, because I don't want you to be lost out, lost or left out.
I'm not lost out. I think you're asking about step one of the methodology.
Yes, she was given an alternative, so I was asking.
Right. So she was talking about using a sound to simulate, and I would agree with that.
Okay.
Or alternatively, you could ask the students to, you could even ask them to give their own, say their own definition. Well, I'm looking at notes.
Yeah.
And my first step in the methodologies to have the students write in their notebook their own definition of the meaning of the word known.
Okay.
And they would share it with other members of the class.
Right.
So in other words, I would look back. The focus in the methodology, from my perspective, would be to get them to participate and communicate.
Certainly.
The meanings and the different types and examples.
Right. Yes, and I'm fine with that. And there could be creative ways to get them to write, so you get them out of the actual exercise book and engaging with each other. You know, you could have the strips of paper and they write the definitions and they put it up, or different things like that. Okay, but I think we're all on the same path. All right, let's look quickly. Dharma and Sashan, I'm going to ask you to take step 2. Vernon, I'm going to ask you to take step 3. Kerry, take step 4 for me, please. Lyra, I'm going to ask you to look at step 5, and Ashley and Sonia, I'm going to ask you to come back to the assignment. Okay? Yes, because we had touched on it before, but I'm going to ask you to look at it again. All right? Okay, so let's go now with step 2. Who is doing step 2? Dharma and Sashan, all right? Right. Okay, so what's the issue with step 2, Dharma and Sashana? Well, I'm trying to.
All right. She mentioned here that students will have to face the different parts of the
right.
What we mentioned now is that in step 2, we're going to brainstorm the different parts of speech.
So step 2, you're going to brainstorm the different parts of speech. Brainstorming meaning the students are going to throw it, similar to what Vernon was suggesting, throw out their own, yes, okay, understandings of, and it's good to start from that point because of the fact that you also have an understanding of where they are and if they, yeah, good. So the step 2, the issue with step 2, again, just zooming in on what to look for. No context is established for the students in step 2. No guidance is offered. Read the construction of their sentences. No scaffolding has taken place. They're not being moved from level to level. Okay. All right. Next, step 3.
All right. For me, step 3, the traditional. Sorry, I'm doing step 3.
Yes.
Right. So for step 3, it seems to be traditional chalk and talk.
Right.
And the students' participation is not encouraged.
Good.
Well, it's along with the student, but of course the students will look to the teacher to supply all the information, because that's what the teacher does, determine what is correct and what is incorrect.
Precisely.
To me, if a student, for example, are placed in groups, and they are asked to critique and give their own response. And as groups or individuals within the groups, that will be more participatory.
Right.
And the teacher would basically be moderating the discussion, so to speak. So the students at least would have been communicating what is it that they are focused on.
Okay, so on whatever part of speech they're looking at, right?
Yeah?
Right. Okay, and that's great. And okay, so what I'm just gonna pull what you said now and put it again, frame it. Because if you think of yourselves as, especially when we look at that first assignment you have, or we think of the exam, you will have to always begin with a point rather than an example, which is what we teach our students to do, right? Yes. So in other words, what's the point that you're making? So out of that, and that is not geared to you, Vernon. I'm saying that generally, right? We have to look at the points that we're making. So what you're saying is little opportunity for students to actually use the language. That step 3 has little opportunity.
Right.
2, there's also lack of authentic materials. Notice I'm trying to pull in the keywords for the course, okay? Lack of use of authentic material. There's also, as you have highlighted, lack of purposeful interaction. Right? So teacher saying something, the student saying something, but again, you're bringing in the collaborative learning because you're saying, where's the interaction? And if it is there, let's get it working, and let's get it working in a specific context. Yes? Great.
Right.
Lovely. All right, step 4.
Okay, that's me.
Right. Is it Carrie? Yes, Carrie.
All right, well, in step 4, the teacher hands out worksheets.
Okay.
And as you said, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, except she's asking for the students to fill in the blanks. And that doesn't necessarily show a true depiction of what they really know, if they've grasped the material or not.
Excellent. Spot on. Very good. Yes. That's the first comment that I would make. Limited scaffolding. You really don't know if they know this. You don't know if you are the one that has actually taught them this. You don't know if they've learned it because of your class or if they had this knowledge before. Focuses on structure, not use, if you're doing a fill in the blanks, right? Lacks connection with real communication. Lacks context. And again, going back to Vernon's point, it's limited opportunity for interaction, because if all I'm doing is filling in the blanks, then I have no reason to speak to you. You don't speak to me. I don't speak to you. Let me do my thing and hand in my work. Okay? Did you hear that very first comment from Sonia?
Sonia really supposed to speak into the classroom.
Say that again, brother.
I'm saying that into the classroom, the general emphasis is that you sit quietly and you do your work and hand your work.
Which is easier for the teacher, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really get the student very far. All right, step 5, Lyra.
Okay, again, it's teacher-centered.
Good.
The teacher will correct students' work.
Good.
And at the end of the session, do a quick recap. So it's definitely the teacher-centered here.
Yes.
And I'm saying that the assessment in a CLT classroom should include interaction. So most probably, instead of having her do the recap and correcting the work, she could ask them to probably break up into groups where each group is going to be responsible for presenting to the class their general understanding of what a particular part of speech is, each particular part of speech is.
Right, and of course they could give real life examples. So they have to show, they have to show the part of speech at work. Okay, so good. I think you've identified it well. No use of the language really is present for themselves. They're not using it in step 5. And then there's limited use of oral and written communication skills. I mean, there's so much that you could get them to write and talk about if they're looking at parts of speech, and it's just totally absent. They're just sitting there like robots, really. Okay? All right, excellent. So we're going to move to the assignment with Ashley and Sonia, and then we're going to seal this off, go to the PowerPoint, and try to complete as much as we can. I'm going to have to take the bad looks from people like Sonia, and hopefully not Kerry, because I'm going to beg you to just allow us to go for another half an hour to finish, okay? Based on all the drama that has occurred today, all right? Vernon, you're nice and comfy, all right? So we're the ones that, we're the ones that.
I won't be able to stay. Eh?
You can't
Spencer.
stay? Oh, that's not, you can't stay?
Yeah, because I get a ride down
You
at
told them
Cedar
exact
Pines.
time.
So, yeah, and I live very far.
She lives very far. What's it? In where? Do you
I'm in the north and I live in the south.
Okay. Sonia's asking if you live in Viewful.
Labrie, further than Viewfort.
Further than that word. Alright, okay, so let's go. Assignments, Ashley and Sonia, and then we'll press. So Leroy, what you can do is interact with me. You can either interact via Skype or send emails if you're having any problem when you go through the PowerPoint. Okay?
Okay.
Alright, let's go.
So maybe the assignment could be that if you have taught the lesson properly and you have put in context, if you have made it more interactive for students and you feel they have actually learned something,
Yeah.
then they could actually go and say write a paragraph on using nouns, verbs, using all the parts of speech.
Great.
On that. If you've thought about ourselves, then
Yes, whatever the theme is. Okay.
And
And the only thing I'd add to that, if everybody has heard that, the only thing I'd add to that now is to give them an audience and put it in the authentic fashion, right? So could it be for a newspaper article, a letter, a diary entry, whatever it is. Excellent. Okay, so we're on our way. All right, so let's just turn our focus to the PowerPoint. This is just in case you did not read beyond, this is our final class. This is not our final class. This is our final class on the theoretical perspectives involved in the functional approach. So remember at the very start, I said to you that we have to have an understanding of the theory so that as we move into the other units, we will begin to flesh out, the activities and the practice of it, okay? In order to appreciate the practice, we have to have the theory. We looked at those already. We looked at that already. All right. Okay. So looking at the functional approach, this is what we're saying, and this is coming out of the activity with the lesson plan. Opportunities must be provided for active communicative interaction among students, and Vernon had kind of made that point, okay? Creative language practice, and I think it came out today, as opposed to exclusively manipulative or convergent practice, simply meaning that the teacher just dominates everything, okay? Have the students find, ways through which to present something or give them a set of multi-level activities, meaning one set has to do a poem, the other set is doing a dramatization, the other set is doing something else, so that they can find their own creative way to present the use of language. Authentic language should be used in instruction wherever possible. So it means, as the teacher, I must be real with the language. Okay, the use of the target language, meaning I should not use the language in a way that is not normally used, because to do that is to confuse the students. Yes.
I remember one example, teaching imagery.
Yes.
I got a newspaper article, as I told you, and the topic of it was why broadcast in this language.
Yes. In that language. Yes.
And then there was a placard with "Fun up to the bun up."
Yes.
I was leaving campus this evening, and every time the student sees me, that's what she can remember. So I saw her walking up to the farm.
Yes.
And the sun was really overhead. So I scrolled and I said, no,
you can
this
see
is
it.
a literal example
of it.
Literal.
Yes.
Bun up till it bun up.
Right. Yes. Yes. So but she saw it at work, right? Okay. Opportunities should be provided for students to practice carrying out a range of functions. So coming back to you again, Vernon, with the use of the grammar, the opportunities for practice when they're couched in context really provide the student with the ability to better utilize the language later on when they have to replicate it for purposes, or when they're asked questions and they need to write whatever it is, they're able to replicate it because each time you practice it, you use it in a context that's relevant to them. Okay, and of course, remember that as teachers, we never only teach our subject area. That's just the reality. Okay, there's so much more that we impart. The development of accuracy should be encouraged, but you notice that the development of it, not, no, that's wrong. Here is the right answer. Okay, So understand what you're looking for. If you are not focused on spelling right now and you're focused on paragraph writing, stop marking up the paper with all the spelling and focus on the paragraph writing so that you don't mess the student up or cause the student to be discouraged, okay? So the development of accuracy should be encouraged, and of course you should tell them this. As learners produce the language, various forms of instruction and evaluative feedback can be given, can be provided for them. So it's not a matter of I've marked your book, here it is. Because half of the things we put in those books, they don't understand totally well. Right? I remember one student saying, Miss always sees squiggly, squiggly on the words. What squiggly, squiggly means, right? Sometimes we feel so, you know, well, what is this? And we squiggle up under the word. But when they get it back, that's not really telling them what is wrong and what needs to be corrected, okay? Instruction should be responsive, and I'm going to plug you again here, Vernon. Instruction should be responsive to the affective as well as the cognitive needs of the students. So it should engage their emotions, it should, and their feelings. It should not just be focused on intellect, okay? And their different personalities, their preferences, their learning styles. Cultural understanding. Vernon, this is the last time I'm going to call your name in this section. Again, Vernon. Cultural understanding must be promoted. So when you're doing my community, right, you're promoting the cultural understanding of how language is used to speak up the person's community. What is it in our society? What ways would we use language when we're going to a bank? What ways would we use language when we need to use the bathroom and we're on the side of the road? Okay, so you have to look at the different ways language is used so that you pull them into the varieties of the uses of language. Okay, all right. So we're gonna quickly go into this, and I'm gonna touch on this, and I'm going to ask Leroy, I know you're gonna leave us shortly, but I'm going to save the activities that we would have done today, save it for you to do on your own. But if you get bogged down at all or stuck, then you just leave it, and when we come back, we'll finish up on it, okay? So again, the top half is missing. I don't know why. All right, so Michael Halliday, you're seeing the last name in the first sentence. It's not in the top. I don't know why. All right, so Michael Halliday is a linguist. Dharma, you want to take over? All right. Dara is a linguist, so I was just pulling her leg. So Halliday is a linguist who moved from a focus on syntax and structure to an emphasis on meaning and how language is socially situated, which is why he's important to this course, okay? He emphasized that from an early age, the child actually knows what language is because he or she knows what language does. So that's the way they're acquiring it, okay? Totally overthrowing Chomsky, right? Who says it's just innate, okay? So the fact of the matter is, if you even take, and I'm going to be very literary and figurative here, but if you even take the crying of a baby, right? And what they will tell you about the crying of a baby. The baby's diapers need to change. The baby wants attention. What is the baby going to do? The baby's going to holler. And then the baby realizes, hey, when I holler, mama comes. Okay, I'm going to do some more hollering. And so it keeps happening. But the point is, because the baby knows what that language enables, the baby continues to use that language, okay? So Halliday classified the child's early language output according to 7 functions. Now we're going to look at this, and I'm going to ask you to go back through them on your own because you'll need to, okay? 7, instrumental, regulatory, interactional, personal, heuristic, imaginative, representational. Now all of these, when you look at them, if you assess yourselves and go back in a reflective way to your lessons, you would have utilized, if not all of them, at least the majority of them would have been utilized. You're just probably not recognizing it, okay? When we look at instrumental, we look at the language that the child uses to get things. I want a banana. The banana does not have to be there, but the function of that language, of language in use there, is that the child would like something, and that's therefore called the instrumental component factor, okay? All right, let's go. Regulatory, the child uses language to regulate the behavior of others. So what is happening here is what they call the language of psychology or control, right? The child learns how to use this language, with caregivers, right? But I want it, okay, that I need it, or I'm not, I'll starve to death, okay, when the child is quite fine, right? So the child practices using that with siblings and continues, of course, as he or she matures. So you know when to be soft-spoken, you know when to be loud, etc., etc. Regulatory, it's controlling language. Interactional is when the child uses language to make and maintain contact with others. So with the exception of twins based on research, all contact is actually mediated through language, all right? So that's how people gain access through contact, using the language. The young child gets great benefit from dealing with this kind of an interactional function because he or she can be both participant and spectator at the same time, which is what interaction conveys. Agreed? So this is expanded to the peer group so that they're defined and consolidated by that particular group. All right, so this is where I'm using the language to make contact, to talk to you, to get something transferred from my brain to your brain. The personal is where I express my individuality. So a child may say something like Baba. Yes? Now, if that child comes into the class and says Baba, we are going to be pretty clueless as to what the child is talking about. But a mother would run in and say, here's your bottle. Okay? So Baba is that personal language use that that child has for him or herself that becomes known eventually based on, you know, what's customary. Heuristic is when a child uses language to explore his or her environment through the act of questioning. So many children actually already control what is called a meta language, an aspect of language for the heuristic function. They know what a question is with me, and they know what an answer is. They're already aware of how a question is shaped and how an answer is shaped. What is important here is that the parent-child communication in directing that question of the environment, let's say that again. What is important here also is the parent-child communication in directing that question of the environment and later the effect on schooling. So what is going to happen here is the child is able to understand if they ask the adult a question, they should not intervene before the adult answers. They recognize certain rules regarding how to question and how to answer. Are you with me? Exactly. So if you're asking an adult a question as opposed to asking another child a question, you recognize how you're going to phrase the question, okay? And usually this is asking about something in the environment, okay? Right. Here the child is also developing meta-linguistic awareness in the imaginative sense. And as I said, right now we're not trying to aim to remember all of this. You'll get it to review and I'll send you 2 articles, right? But in the form of a story or narrative. Now, you see children doing that all the time. They want to get across a point or say something to you and they create a story. Or you do that with them. You're trying to get across a point and so you create the story. So they learn the imaginative function of language. The child is pretending, inventing, creating his or her own environment, okay? So there could be a beanstalk in the room, in the bedroom, okay? Or this is where the child gets scared and says there's definitely a monster in the closet, okay? It doesn't matter if the closet is wide open and totally cleared out. There is a monster in there, okay? It is not how things are, but how she or he presents the possibilities of being, okay? And of course, you know riddles, right? Everybody knows the use of riddles. So riddles would come under this. Representational. This function is one that features language with adults. It refers to the language of facts, propositions, statements that can be verified, abstractions meaning nothing tangible, qualities, states, and relations of the real world. So it is not a function that really comes early to the child because anything in the abstract really occurs after about 6, 7 going onwards, depending on the child, of course. Okay, so can you give me an example of one word that might be an abstract word for a child? One word. Something that we all feel. We all feel it. We all experience
Love. Love.
Okay. So listen, she said love. So love is really an abstraction. Love is something that we cannot touch it. I can't define. I can't tell the child this is it. But so they grow to understand love, which is why what you do with them at an early stage is so important, because whatever you do with them defines the abstractions for them. So love for a child who grows up with pure shouting and hollering It looks very different from love with a child, where the mother and father are constantly hugging the child or etc. You know, saying nice words, using nice words, etc. So this is representational, where you use things that represent. So if the child says something like the strands of your, no, the child wouldn't say the strands, that's my language. Let's if the child says, mommy here like train or train track, right? If the child says mommy here like train track, the child is equating something to do with the toy to something to do with the mother's here. And so it becomes representational, very rare at early stages, but still present. In fact, that's how you can tell if a child is climbing on a gifted level or is actually very much engaged in a text, okay? If they're able to use that language, okay. So let's just quickly the benefits of Halliday's functional model. It's called a model because it is utilized to speak to other things, okay? You still with us, Lyra? Okay.
Yes.
You look like you're dropping out, Lyra. Oh, just hold on a little bit longer. Anyway, the functional model emphasizes the relationship between language and context. That's why we're using it, okay? It speaks to the relationship between language and context. If you take away the context, then the way of speaking about language becomes lost. Okay, so there's nothing to speak about because I'm not using the language. Okay, different situational, social, and cultural contexts motivate different language users to produce different types of texts. And different language users here still applies to those who are either using the standard English or see it as a target language. Okay, so we can have the same standard English but different users of language. So you speak one way, you utilize another, and we could go on like that. Okay? Vernon, you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, great. So learning to become a proficient language user is learning to make choices, and this is the key, Vernon. I did say that was the last time I was going to use your name, but here is the key. When we always have to give the structure, we are in control, and the student becomes a robot just feeding off what we're giving. When we teach them language in context, we give them the freedom to use language based on how they're learning about language. Okay, so learning, if you see that, learning to become a proficient language user is learning to make choices about language, particularly its appropriateness to context and purpose. So when that child goes out there, it's not a matter that they know what a noun is. At the end of the day, is it right to be speaking like this to the Prime Minister? What jargon must be applied here? What register? Okay. If I can use another sophisticated word, so if I'm writing a literature essay, for example, I might see the word. If I'm looking at the waves, I might say instead of the waves are coming in, I might say the waves have what? Okay, actually, the waves are galloping in. Whatever it is, the point is I can use more sophisticated, present more sophisticated uses of language depending on my context. And of course, this is very important to a Creole speaking environment, all right, where you have two languages. Politicians, in fact, that's something I wanted you to look at today, but you know, everything happens for a reason. So next week we look at it. We have two YouTube videos, one from St. Lucia and one from Jamaica to look at, but we'll look at it. No, I had to run away from Rosie. It was very tempting, but I ran away from Rosie just to try and evaluate that same thing. Okay, all right. Let me just do a time check. Okay, good. So we're finished with Michael Halliday. So let's just go back. The basic idea with Halliday are those functions of language use: the instrumental, the regulatory, the interactional, personal, heuristic, imaginative, and representational. That's what we'll be using. All his theoretical principles that we'll be looking at will be centered around these 7 language use functions. Clear? All right. Okay. So the second person we want to go to as we close off the theoretical side of things is Del Hymes. Okay? Don't know why there's nothing at the top either. Anyway, Del Hymes, D-E-L-L-H-Y-M-E-S, as is there in the middle. So Hymes is similar to Halliday, started off as a straight structural linguist and then shifted, okay? And his shift is a bit different from Halliday because he didn't fight off Chomsky. What he said with Chomsky is that, listen, Chomsky, those are some good ideas, but we need to get further than those ideas, okay? So he says he extends what he says and so becomes socially significant. So the two theories we're looking at are important because of how they look at the social functions of language, okay? So Hines examines how the child comes to know language, and that's important. Hines believes that language is functional and it relates to use. Most people can use language to some extent, he says, all have some level of communicative competence, okay? The issue will be where you want the student to go, what you want the student to acquire. His theory of language is focused on language as speech, okay? And we'll get into that in a minute. And I've already said that point about Chomsky. So competence as grammatical knowledge is linked with the child's language acquisition device. And that refers to the innate ability of the child to understand and produce the language of his or her speech community. So let's say that again. My grammatical knowledge, right, is what allows competence based on my social context, my speech community. So that is why you may not teach a child standard English intentionally, but they grow up hearing that, and so they're able to reproduce it, but they cannot for the life of them tell you why. They can't tell you why that is there, they can't tell you what it is, and they may not be able to write it. And I think some of you have already shared with me that you've experienced that. Great in speech, but they can't move it to writing, okay? There are rules of use without which the rules of grammar would be useless. So what Hines is saying is, listen, it's not that grammar is not important, but if use is not in play, then what's the point of grammar? Okay? The child knows how to behave in a speech community. She or he develops the ability to select from the complete idea of what is grammatical, the phrase that reflects the social norm of the society. So when I'm traveling in a few weeks, for example, when I go to England and I'm in a fairly dominant Black community, believe it or not, the language situation completely changes than when I'm going into a predominantly white community. And understand that it's not necessarily because of what? It's not necessarily because I can switch the accent where we call it an accident here every now and then. So I can switch into that easily because I lived there for 4 years, right? But yes, I can. Anyway, that's America. The bottom line, seriously though, is that what you produce, the language you produce is based on whatever speech community you end up being in. So if you go to the market, you dare not come to them in standard English. You dare not use standard English because you know what's going on.
If you miss, I have a situation for it.
Precisely.
So I drove up on the stretch of road that will take you to, like, in the market vicinity in downtown Kingston, Korean. Yeah. So I drove up and I said, how much? Oh, so he looked at my car. So I'm saying, how much are bundles for the color? He said $100. Now I went the bright man come and say $100 3 bundles. Wow, because your system is not here.
Because he's got it. But it matters. It does. Our accents matter.
I think he probably heard when I said, how much are bundles for the color?
And so he just marketed himself correctly. All right, so here's the example of the competence. It's one thing to learn Japanese, and those of you, I was at the very start of the class, I know I said to Dharma when I went to Costa Rica, and I had my Spanish dictionary walking with. It didn't matter one bit that I had my Spanish dictionary walking with, because by the time they said 2 words, I would be busy trying to find what they said. So it's one thing to learn Japanese, which is really linguistic competence. That's the grammar of it. It's a totally different thing to learn how to ask for a drink in Japanese, which is the communicative competence part of it. How to what functional uses of language are looking at, right? All right. So the learner needs to understand the social constraints, which have nothing to do with skill. Okay. For example, with the use of Spanish. And I'm saying Spanish because it's the example that comes to me quickly. Leroy, I'm not sure if Leroy is still there, but it would happen with French as well, depending on the territory. The French Creole and the French.
Different.
Yes. So a Haitian speaker of French Creole. I mean, I thought I was great with French. No. And then some Haitians came to us at an airport a few months ago, and so they were, you know, I heard the little twangy part of the French, and so I started feeling like I'm going to speak some French. And after, I couldn't understand one word. Not only could I not understand their language, but when I was speaking lovely French, I was taught they were clueless. Exactly. So social context determine the use of the language.
But Miss,
yes.
There are two Haitians at my school now, and we have a lecturer who was socialized in St. Lucia. Right. So she has that French Creole.
That's interesting.
But she cannot be their mentor. Dr. Orville Taylor
has
knows
to be
the French Creole
of
their
environment, their community.
Locals.
Yes.
He's their mentor.
I was about to say that like he was St. Lucia Creole is different from the Haitian Creole.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Different. I was trying to figure if we could find examples with English, but we can look into it.
Many. Same to Elizabeth.
We can look into it. Is it English or is it Creole? That's what I'm saying. Right. So I'm saying right. We'd have to find. Yes, I guess we could. I guess different based on countries, different uses of the language based on countries, and yes, the accent matters.
Even Guadeloupe, Martinique, and St. Lucia, their Creole are practically the same.
Yeah, the Creole languages, yes. Carrie, are you still with us?
No.
Miss Lobo.
No. The only one. Is that what it means? Or is when they speak? Right, it's when they speak, it comes out, you know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are they
No, Lyra said she was going to go. But Carrie, are you there?
I'm still here.
Okay, you saved the day. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. Continuing quickly, we're going to close in 5 minutes. The child learns what is appropriate from an early age. Okay, so speech communities are organizers of ways of speaking, not just distribution of the grammar. So acquisition is fed by social purposes. When I have a particular need, I need to use the language. So you use the language to express needs. Use the language because of you need to name something, you need to label something, you need it because you need to shout something, you're rejoicing, you're crying, whatever it is, you use the language based on the need for the language, okay? Which is where the grammar fits in. All right, just go to that last sentence. You can read the rest on your own. The last sentence, the crux of the matter is the social dimension of language. Language use becomes relevant because of the social dimension. Language is used because we need it to get around, to function in society. That's why we use it. So that's the bottom line of why we don't support the grammar in isolation, the structure in isolation, because that's not a natural way of knowing and understanding language.
Who started that?
Who started what? The CLT idea or the structural?
No, not the CLT.
The structural. Well, it comes from the regular, what would that be now? 19th century, from before 19th century, the Renaissance period where the idea was everything was in the power of the mind to recreate. So persons just remember that university teaching and all of these coming from the idea that there's somebody housing all of this great knowledge that you have to acquire. Yes, very theoretically based, which is why modern society now has said, listen, we need to throw out some of those ideas and get back.
We do are creating language, look at the text language that we're creating.
Yes, exactly. Yes, no.
And the role that we have now, our two friends that was just talking professional, I mean, they were very brilliant.
Yeah.
Because in order to understand each other, I mean, they create.
You're not hearing, Vernon? Okay.
I mean, they created a language in which they could use and understand each other.
Yeah, which has translated into Jamaican.
I mean, our African ancestors, when they came here, they had the English, the French, and everybody Spanish. How could they function? And they had various languages as well.
So again, you're proving the point.
Yes.
So the language was created in order to exist in the social context. Okay, I like when you prove the point. Okay, so let me just, I did not do that, so that's not a spelling error, okay? Okay, we're closing now, but what I want to just run through is this is what Del Himes, so just like Michael Halliday created those 7 functions, Del Himes created the speaking acronym, and it's what is used to assess language use, okay? So the S stands for setting and scene, and you can look at it, what the setting refers to. I think some of that is self-explanatory. The participants, when you're looking at a speaking event, a communicative event, who are the participants in the event, okay? And when you see the assignment that you're going to get at the end, you'll understand why I needed to look at this very closely and nicely. The ends, very, very simple assignment in one sense. Ends speak of the expected outcomes and personal goals of that, what you expect to come out of the communicative event. The act sequence is the actual form and content of what is said. So you're looking at public lectures, cocktail chatter. How does casual conversation differ from a news report item, differ from you know, a formal banquet situation, whatever it is. The key refers to the tone or manner of the message. Is it serious? Is it light-hearted? Instrumentalities refers to the medium, the choice of channel. Is it spoken, written, digital? Okay, that's the communicative event. Remember, that's what we're talking about. Is it in Jamaican Creole? Is it in standard English? Is it in something else? Okay, you can read through that as well. The expectations of the participants in the conversation. Okay, so lectures are not really expected, so I feel on that bar because I cannot keep a straight face for 3 hours. Okay, lectures are not expected to be amusing. They're not expected to be. So that's based on stereotypical notions of lecturers. Who else can we think about? News reporters. Remember we discussed that something, right? I don't know if you all saw it. I know I saw it popping up on Yahoo where you had the reporter and her daughter came on to give her her phone. I don't know if anybody saw it. In the middle of her lovely news report, looking very straight and straight-faced, and then her daughter climbs up behind, not realizing that she's on air, and starts to give her the cell phone, and she realizes that she's on air, and she flies, and the lady does not, her facial expression does not change. Remember we spoke about it does not, you would never believe she knew her, she would not know who that little girl was to her, okay? So in that setting, right, communicating to her TV audience, she had to operate a certain way. The genre now, lecture, sermon, prayers, funeral oration, TV report, as we just said. Okay, so the bottom line is without the rules of use, grammar rules cannot operate. That's important. They can't function. If you don't know how you're using language, then why would you bother to figure out how grammar should be used to help you to use the language? Okay? All right, now watch this now. You see that lovely thing right there? I want you now. I want you when you're relaxed and not now. This is we're at the end, and this is your focus for the week to come as we get into next week. I want you to look at the speaking acronym, okay? And I'll have this all typed up and email. You know, I'll email it. Yes, I'll email you the thing. Just listen for now. Use a speaking acronym to describe the breaking up of a relationship. I don't say which kind of relationship really, but breaking up would suggest. Okay? And it could be or it could be a request for a bank loan. Now what you're gonna go through is go through the acronym. What would be the setting? What would be the scene? Who would be the participants? The ends, and we could go on. The acts, etc. And jot them down. Okay. Please do not go into the imaginative function of language. We would like you to stay in the, yes, the real state. All right? Is that clear to everybody? Yeah. All right. So, Himes and Halliday contribute to our understanding of language as communication, as they are both concerned with the social dimension. Are you all seeing that? That's where the plug is. Okay, Vernon, are you still there? Carrie? Carrie, don't look like you're, thank you. I like to see when you're like that, Carrie. When you go up to the chair, I get worried.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we're closing. We just have one more slide. I just want to provide a close off to it, okay? So the social dimension of language is what Himes and Halliday are focused on, which is why we're looking at them. Halliday believes all competence is about being communicative, and Himes has classified and generated a format within which to couch communicative acts in different cultures. So he's saying that acronym can be used whatever culture the language is being used. And so language structure will help to enable language use, but it is pointless to focus only on structure when the only reason for understanding structure is to enable language use. Okay?
This is a lot.
We are, what is your son's name, Kerry?
Farouk?
Hi, Farouk, you have done really well. Proud of you. Hi.
My daughter is here too.
Where's your daughter? How I get off?
Ari, say hi.
I'm trying to. Oops. Oops.
Ari, come.
Wait.
No, she can't see you.
All right. Everybody say hi to Farouk. And what's your daughter's name?
Ariane.
Okay. Can you see? No, I don't know if you can see me. Can you see me now? Yes.
Oh, yes.
We're good. Okay. Look after mommy. Don't give her any trouble.
All right.
Bye. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Look out for my email.
Okay, thank you.